up north, and hopefully we'll be in Massachusetts, New York on time. On time being, last minute, but of course God's favorite timing is last minute. So, hey, I got some messages this morning, and I want to clear up a couple things, okay? Because once again, there seems to be some real confusion on what's going on, okay? So there's two questions that we are asking the Supreme Court. Two questions, okay? And they're very, very specific, because every single thing, all the injustice that's happening across America derives from two things. One is tyranny, and the other is oppression, okay? So tyranny is the unequal application of the law by a person in a position of authority. So when a person applies the law unequally who is in a position of authority, that would be a tyrannical act, okay? Now the second thing is oppression. Oppression is the enactment of laws that are unequal against one part of society and not another. So these two questions that I have to the court address both of these, okay? The first is, do states have the right to substitute their own alternative legislation for the provisions and guarantees of the United States Constitution, all right? So if a state enacts a law that affects one party and not another, that would be oppression, right? So states do not have the authority to enact their own alternative legislation for the provisions and guarantees of the United States Constitution. That would be unconstitutional, right? That would be oppression, okay? Now the second question is does the judicial branch have constituted authority to be able to alter, amend, or destroy any of the provisions or guarantees of the United States Constitution? See, that would be individuals in a position of power that would be affecting one party and not another. That would be tyranny, okay? So these two questions hit the heart of both those issues. And once again, the judicial branch has no constituted authority to be able to alter, amend, or destroy the Constitution of the United States. You see, every single thing that I'm doing here has to do with what is the supreme law of the land, right? Do states have the supreme law of the land? If they do, then states can substitute their own alternative legislation for the provisions and guarantees of the Constitution. But is that what we believe in here in America? Do we believe in the United States of California or the United States of Washington? I don't think so. I certainly didn't fight for that when I was in the military. I was fighting for America, right? And what America stands for. And America is a union of 50 partially governed states that with a centralized governing structure. So states do not have the authority to enact their own alternative legislation and substitute it for the provisions and guarantees of the United States Constitution. So if you guys want to know how to change the Constitution of the United States, you go to the special amending procedure, which is or special amending article, which is Article 5 of the United States Constitution. Nowhere within Article 5 does it say anything to do with the judicial branch, nor does it say anything to do with the states, okay? The people of the United States changed the Constitution through an authentic act of the people, okay? Read the Constitution. Read Article 5. Proposed amendments, once passed by 2/3 of both House and Senate, they are then sent out to the states. And once 2/3 of the states enact it through an authentic act of the people, through the suffrage of the people, then and only then does that provision or amendment become a part of the Constitution in all intents and purposes. There's no other way to change the Constitution of the United States than by an authentic act of the people. That's the only way to do it, okay? No other way. States cannot create their own law, substitute it, and say, we're not going to do what the Constitution of the United States says, because that would be an act that would be contrary to the special amending procedures of Article 5. So if I can sum up everything that I'm doing into one paragraph, all right, and it's a long paragraph, but if I could sum it up in one paragraph, it would be this. I am not trying to change the laws. Rather, I'm pointing out what the laws state, and that the ways in which they're being enforced directly contradict with what is specified. Therefore, I'm not trying to change the laws. Rather, I'm asking that we uphold them. If the laws state that something will be done in a certain way, then we must follow that way. Laws do not change arbitrarily. That is tyranny. Constitutionalism demands that the laws evolve only through suffrage. Therefore, it's up to the people to decide whether or not the Constitution applies to them and not a judge or a state. If, in the opinion of the people of the United States, any of the provisions or guarantees of the United States Constitution be in any particular way wrong, then let it be corrected by an amendment in the way in which the Constitution so designates, until, if and when that time comes, every single United States citizen is entitled to every single right secured by and enumerated in the Constitution, regardless of where they choose to reside within the jurisdictional United States. So this morning, I receive a message from someone in Virginia saying that the state of Virginia doesn't have to provide an indictment by a grand jury because the state has substituted its own alternative legislation for the provisions and guarantees of the United States Constitution. And I'm going to tell you right now that I hope and I pray that that is the argument that they bring to the Supreme Court. Because if they do, this is going to be even easier than I ever dreamed of. Because states do not have the authority to do that. We have a supreme law of the land. And when the supreme law of the land states in Clause 1 of Amendment 5, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, that's clear. You must have an indictment by a grand jury before holding someone over for a capital or an infamous crime. When you do not have an indictment by a grand jury and you choose to arrest someone without it, then that would be an unconstitutional act because it's contrary to what the Constitution states must be done. States do not have the authority to say, we're not going to follow the Constitution because that would make them no longer part of America. The only thing that makes America America is American laws, and failure to follow American laws makes you no longer part of America. That's what the purpose of the Union was, to establish an overarching set of laws that would govern all 50 regional governments. And when those 50 regional governments fail to follow the procedures and processes established and codified in the Constitution and agreed upon codified by the people of the United States, then they are acting unconstitutionally. You guys, there's a maxim of law that we all know and that we all can fully understand that says that any act unconstitutional on its face cannot become constitutional over time or by subsequent legislation. The Constitution is clear. You must have an indictment by a grand jury before holding someone over for capital or infamous crime. And when you do not have it, then you are acting unconstitutionally. And anything that derives from that unconstitutional act must be unconstitutional. Period. So when you say that you need to challenge a judgment, right, because someone convicted you as a result of an adjudication process, my question to you is, where is the indictment by a grand jury? Because if there isn't one, then guess what? That act as of that moment was unconstitutional, which means that the judgment is unconstitutional, and any unconstitutional judgment is void on its face, fully without force or effect. They aren't valid, you guys. They aren't valid because the states are choosing to act unconstitutionally. This is not a difficult thing to understand. States cannot substitute their own alternative legislation for the provisions and guarantees of the United States Constitution. Do you guys know what sedition means? All right. Sedition is what leads to treason. Okay. Sedition, the definition by law is the speaking or writing of words such as law established in order to cause disaffection to the Constitution to procure its alteration in an other than lawful manner. There is one way to change the Constitution, and that can be found in the special amending procedure of Article 5 of the United States Constitution. When you read that, it says nothing at all to do with a state saying, we don't want to do what the Constitution says. We're going to do something different, because if you do that, you are causing disaffection to the Constitution in order to procure its alteration in an other than lawful manner. That is a seditious act. By treasonous. People are committing treason against America. Because if you want to change the Constitution, you must do it in a lawful manner. And the lawful manner can be found in Article 5. So I pray that these states, including the state of Virginia, comes at me with that argument, because I'm going to destroy them. They will not stand a chance in an argument against me, because the Constitution is clear. You must have an indictment by a grand jury before holding someone over for a capital or an infamous crime. When you don't have it, we don't care why you don't have it. The fact that you don't have it is sufficient to establish a criminal act committed against the individual who's accused of a crime. I'm not saying that they're innocent, right? I don't know if they committed the crimes. But if we don't follow the laws in the adjudication, then I can say that they are not guilty, because guilt is a process, and you must follow that process. And if you do not follow that process, what you produce is unconstitutional. So these maxims of law, they're very, very simple. You cannot break the law in order to enforce the law. So we can look at two different points in the timeline, all right? We can look at the point in which the arrest occurred that was contrary to what the Constitution demands, and we can say, okay, that arrest is unconstitutional, but we're still going to argue the end and the judgment, right? We're still going to go there and we're going to appeal something that isn't valid because the arrest was unconstitutional. You guys can do that, and that's the way that the attorneys want you to go. They've been telling you to do that for hundreds and hundreds of years here, right? And we keep losing, right? And you would wonder why we keep losing when clearly you guys didn't do anything wrong, or clearly, they did. It doesn't matter because you're following criminals, and criminals are telling you to go to the end and fight from the end. You guys, why would you do that? Because if you fight from the end, what you're saying is that I'm going to defend myself from what you guys say that I did. You guys got to go on offense. That's what we're doing. That's the whole point of what I'm traveling across the country doing, is we are going on offense. You guys are stepping up and saying that to them, you guys committed a crime against me. You had no authority to arrest me because the Constitution says you got to do certain things in order to do so. When you don't do it, that is a crime. It's a crime committed against you. You guys are the victims. So when a crime is committed against you in order to obtain a judgment, that judgment isn't valid. It doesn't even exist because the constitutional violation occurred long before that crime. So why would you defend yourself? Why would you say, I didn't do what you claimed for me to do? No, you guys go on offense and you point at the moment that they committed a crime against you. And in doing so, you don't have to talk about anything else. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to challenge a judgment because there is no judgment. Any act unconstitutional on its face cannot become constitutional over time or by subsequent legislation. That is a maxim of law. It's immovable. It is infallible. It is set and established in stone. These are simple, you guys. This is the United States of America. That's a great point right there. Great point, Levo. The United States of America establishes the laws that bind the states of America together. Those laws must be adhered to by every single state. And if they aren't, then you are not part of the United States of America. We, the people, decide what we, the people, want to be governed by, right? And we made that decision. We made that decision on September 17, 1787, when we adopted and ratified the Constitution of the United States, gave it to our government and said, govern us according to these rules put in place here. You cannot change or alter those rules without an authentic act of the people, and it's never been done. Never. We've never changed the Constitution of the United States, right? Well, I mean, we have 27 times, but at the end of the day, this particular provision, Clause 1 of Amendment 5, has never been altered, amended, or destroyed. Therefore, no judge can refuse to follow it. No state can refuse to obey it. They all must adhere to it, you guys. So again, when you guys are in sports, right, and you're competing, okay, the best position strategically to be in is not on defense, right? Because the other team's going to score. So why are you guys going to continue to defend yourself from the position of defense when you can go on offense and score? You go on offense by no longer defending yourself and instead accusing them of the crimes that they committed against you. And in doing so, you don't have to talk about anything else. Whether you committed a crime or not is irrelevant. Go on offense. You score. And you do that by pointing to the moment that they committed the crime against you. You guys, it's jurisdiction. They didn't have authority to do it. They don't have authority to arrest you because they don't have the proper documentation in place, right? They didn't follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, it's not valid. It can never be valid. It doesn't matter what a state enacts or anything else. Article 6 of the Constitution says, the judges in every state shall be bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. That provision requires the judges in every state to two things. One, they must do whatever the Constitution says because they are bound thereby anything in the Constitution. The second part is it doesn't matter what a state enacts because or any law to the state contrary, notwithstanding. So they have to do what the Constitution says, even if a state directs them to do something contrary to it. That's the adherence that we have. The Constitution is pretty solid, you guys. It protects you in unbelievable ways that you could never even dream of because it's already there. States cannot substitute their own alternative legislation for the provisions and guarantees of the Constitution because the judges in every state shall be bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of the state to the contrary notwithstanding. Okay? The judicial branch can't tell them that they don't have to do it because the judges in every state shall be bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of the state to the contrary notwithstanding. They swore an oath with and to the Constitution upon entering into their office. And that oath binds them to a future outcome, a future promise, right? Remember, you guys, Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution says no state shall enact any law that shall impair the obligations. I'm sorry, guys. No state shall enact any law that shall impair the obligation of contracts. That particular provision points to the judges because the judges enter into a contract buy-in between the people that they will fulfill a future outcome. That's the promise that they make. And the promise or the terms of that contract can be found within the Constitution because it says the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of the state's contrary notwithstanding. So the judge promises to do what the Constitution says. That is a first duty to the judges. That's their first obligation. Before anyone walks into their courtroom, they must do what the Constitution says. And therefore, no state can create any law which will impair the obligation of contracts. That means that no state can create a law that will impair the judge's ability to be able to deliver on that contract and the terms of that contract. Therefore, no state can create a law that changes the Constitution of the United States because the judges have no authority if they're operating contrary to their promise. Because you guys, when you make a promise and you take an oath and you fail to fulfill that promise, willfully or negligently, it doesn't matter. Because remember, public officials have no right to self-defense. You have no right to defend yourself if you broke the law because you made a promise and that promise says you will do it. So when you fail to do it, you have already implicitly invited punishment in the form of perjury for failing to fulfill that promise. You must do what the promise requires. And the promises, the requirements are in the Constitution. So the judges in every state are bound thereby anything in the Constitution or laws of the state to contrary notwithstanding. So I hope and I pray that these states come with that argument. That's the same argument that the state of Washington and the Attorney General of Washington responded to the United States District Court in response to the written allegation that we have. Because when I said that there's no indictment by a grand jury, the Washington state doesn't follow it. They don't issue indictments by a grand jury. You know what Bob Ferguson, the Attorney General of Washington state, said in response to that? The Fifth Amendment does not apply to the state of Washington, right? Fifth Amendment doesn't apply to the state of Washington. What the hell did you just say? The Fifth Amendment doesn't apply to the state of Washington. Huh. Well, you know what? I responded by saying, well, the Attorney General is partially correct in that the Fifth Amendment doesn't apply to the state of Washington because it applies to the people of the United States, including those people residing within the state of Washington. The people of the United States are guaranteed by those provisions and protections and guarantees of the United States Constitution. I don't care what a state says because a state is bound thereby anything in the Constitution, right? Those judges, those agents of the state are bound thereby. And when they fail to do it, they have already implicitly invited punishment in the form of perjury should they fail to fulfill the promise, right? When you fail to fulfill a promise after taking an oath to do so, you have just committed the crime of perjury, right? Perjury. And perjury is a violation of public trust, meaning that you can never hold office again because you can't be trusted by the public, right? Because you violated public trust. So when a judge fails to fulfill the promise, fails to give the people what is guaranteed to them within the Constitution of the United States, you are guilty of the crime of perjury. And that is a per se offense, meaning that we don't have to prove that you intended to commit that crime. Simply by virtue of the breach of obligation, all elements of crime have been met. That's why Article 3 of the United States Constitution says the trial of all crimes, with the exception of impeachment, shall be by jury, and the trial shall occur in the state in which the crime is said to have been committed. Because the crime of impeachment, which is the result of perjury, is a per se crime. We don't have to have a finding of facts. There's no jury that's required. You don't have to be alive to defend yourself. If we could show that you breached an obligation, you're done. You're cooked. You're no longer fit to fulfill your office any longer. That's because Article 3 says the judges, both of the United States and of the several states, shall maintain their office while in good behavior. And good behavior is defined as the avoidance of criminal behavior. So the moment you engage in criminal behavior as a judge, both of the United States or of the several states, the moment you engage in criminal behavior, you're no longer fit to continue in office. You are thereby discharged immediately because you can't be trusted to fill that position. Guys, this is not a difficult thing to understand. But what you do have to understand is that if you continue to follow liars, you're going to be heading toward criminality. If you don't want to be a criminal, then stop following liars and follow the truth. And I'm telling you the truth. You guys can read it yourself. It's never been changed. It's never been altered. There is no lawful justification for anyone to be able to alter, amend, or destroy the Constitution of the United States. It doesn't matter whether it's through judicial fiat, right? Because the judicial branch has no constituted authority to alter the Constitution of the United States. That would be a seditious act done by traitors to the nation. And no state has the authority to alter, amend, or destroy the Constitution of the United States because that would be a seditious act by traitors to the nation. If the states want to eliminate the grand jury, that's fine. Present your case to the people of the United States, get the people of the United States to agree that that's the way that we want to now proceed as a nation. And until you do that, you have no law. None. What you've created is nothing because it's contrary to the Constitution. And anytime you have an act contrary to the Constitution, that would be an unconstitutional act. Unconstitutional. And when you have an unconstitutional act in the pursuance of an adjudication, you are producing an unconstitutional outcome. This is not difficult. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. The laws of the United States say this is what you have to do. If you don't do it, then what you produce is nothing at all. Nothing. It's unlawful, unconstitutional, void on space, without force or effect on the parties involved in the dispute. What you guys have in place right now, it doesn't matter whether it's a CPS case, it doesn't matter whether it's a criminal case, it doesn't matter whether it's a guardianship. Every single one of these cases are unconstitutional, and I will destroy them on their face the moment that I get back to DC. Give me the opportunity to do this. But stop fighting with me. Stop arguing with me. Look at the laws yourself. You guys can believe in the truth just as much as I do, right? All you got to do is just follow what I'm saying. Just look at what I'm saying. Just look it up, right? And when you do, you're going to cut through all the bullshit that they fed you, all the lies that they put into place, all these rulings that have no validity whatsoever. You'll cut through all that, and you'll return to a state of, oh, I have nothing to worry about, because they're criminals, and criminals have no position of authority in this country. They're committing crimes against you every single day, and I will challenge anyone out there that wants to come and debate me, who's got the balls to actually come and debate me on this issue. I will challenge anybody, right? I don't care who you are. You don't stand a chance. If you're going to come at me with anything other than the Constitution of the United States, if you're going to argue with me if it's anything other than that, I will destroy you. I will destroy you in a second. I speak the Constitution, and I will not speak anything else. And if you guys bring anything to me contrary to the Constitution, you will be destroyed. The Constitution is clear. That's what we have to follow. That's the only thing we have to follow. Anything that's not the Constitution is unconstitutional. That's why I will not argue a judge-made ruling, because judges are liars. That's why I will not argue a state statute, because states are liars. Okay? They want to enslave you. They want to imprison you. They want to steal your kids. Why would you follow what they say? Follow the Constitution, because that was what established America. That's what we all believe in. That's what we have faith in. We can do that, right? We have 3 days left. 3 days. 3 days, guys. Help see me get to my last destination, okay? We need some money to be able to get there. I don't need much, but we're gonna do this, all right? Because I see how weak these people actually are, right? When they come at me with that sort of an argument that says that the states don't have to do what the Constitution of the United States says, that's the weakest argument that they could possibly come up with. They don't stand a chance on that. I have no problem continuing to push forward with what I'm doing right now, because if that's the argument, that's the best thing they can come up with, they're done. They're done. They're not going to stand a chance in this. So please, we got 3 days remaining. We need to get this information out to the Trump team. We need to make sure that they're on board, because when I hit New York, we need to have them behind this on my way back into DC, because that's going to bring every single news station in the country behind this argument. And we're there, you guys. We're there. And none of these convictions are valid because the states are choosing to proceed contrary to the Constitution of the United States, contrary to the will of the people, contrary to laws that establish their office and grant them their authority. And when you act without lawful authority or in violation of delegated authority, what you produce is nothing at all, because you're a liar. All right. God bless you guys. And I hope to see you in just a couple of days. So we'll continue on the journey. Remember, read the laws. Listen to what I'm saying. It's not difficult. You guys can win your arguments. You guys can win your battles independently right now with the information I've empowered you with. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.